Doth the deep staters protest too much? Joining us now, Congressman and Dr. Rich McCormick of Georgia's 7th Congressional District. Congressman, the Dems are calling this an illegal power grab. How is this illegal?
Well, they're upset because we're actually exposing what they've been using to politicize money spent by the U.S. taxpayers. Now, what's interesting, there are some U.S. aid programs that legitimize it in their eyes because, for example, Bangladesh at the Cox's Bazar, you have 1 million people in 13 square kilometers, which I visited. And you can see where people are living off of $8 per month per person. They use that to cover up all the horrible things that they spend this money on. And matter of fact, what's funny is they wouldn't have to live on that money if they would spend it correctly. But instead, they pilfer it on programs that you just pointed out, DEI, operas, things that have nothing to do with helping people, only a political agenda to confuse people, to confound what the future of America and the rest of the world is. And that's what they've been caught red-handed. They're going to try to divert the attention from that. They're going to try to make this about poor, starving people instead of the waste, fraud, and abuse that's been in the system for a very long time.
Now, I really harangued on the Langley guys, but this also goes to some of the Democrat friendlies. The Democrats have made a lot of money over the years through non-governmental organizations, through USAID. I guess they're really upset that that spigot is about to be turned off.
As well it should be. This isn't just USAID. This is a lot of government programs where people have been pilfering. When you talk about $800 per person per day, getting a cot and meals down at the border for people who crossed illegally, that's a pilfering in the system. Going through grant systems that go through basically not-for-profits that get a 10% set aside. I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg of exposing where the real money is going. When you're spending $7 trillion per year and you're having a considerable amount getting pilfered by people who would really just try to make profit rather than actually do the American people's will, we have a problem, and it's going to be solved under this administration. I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think so many are with you on that point. Excited that the kinds of money that we've been pouring into these amorphous, strange, unlabeled programs, and sometimes badly labeled programs, are finally coming, it seems, to an end. That said, the agencies that rely on this money are rather powerful, and they have powerful ties to the Hill. How do we know these will actually go away should funding be rediverted?
Well, what we can do is say, if you're not going to divert it, we'll just reduce your budget. And you have to decide where that money goes. Welcome to the real world, bureaucrats, where you actually get exposed, where people hold you accountable, where we don't have the heads of bureaucracies actually playing political games for political favors. Wouldn't that be nice for a change?
Well, it would. What are your thoughts on Rubio taking over?
I think this is a great step in the right direction. President Trump selected him for a purpose. I think he's determined. I think this is going to literally create his own legacy, which I think he's excited about. You pick somebody who actually has a diverse background, a diverse family background, and who can really get to the meat of the matter. He's a very intelligent guy. I think President Trump's giving him an opportunity to thrive and hold the American people up over the government that's been abused for so long.
Yeah, the Democrats haranguing this position as saying this is going to make the world less safe. And again, what they're alluding to is what I was alluding to in my opening, and that is so much of U.S. aid has been used towards CIA projects. And that's not a bad thing. It's only bad when the agency that is running these covert operations are working against American citizens. That's where it takes a bad turn. And there's no dispute. The intelligence community has taken that turn for decades at this point.
Well, certainly by politicizing things and making this about a transgender community, when we have no business getting involved in Syrian politics and that sort of warped politics where we're trying to figure out how do we change people's minds in a way that has nothing to do with the American society, the fabric, the majority of Americans who want to just live normal lives. Get back to normalcy and common sense. That's what President Trump's going to bring. That's what the people wanted. That's what they mandated with this vote. And it's going to be exciting to see how our world influence is going to change back towards things that actually make sense rather than just something that has an agenda for some social narrative.
No, you're right. And speaking of things that make sense, President Trump today is expected to sign an executive order withdrawing the United States from the UN Human Rights Council. Now, there's pros and cons to this. NPR lays it all out. They says the order will also cut future funding to the UN Relief and Works Agency, which provides aid to the Palestinians. The Biden administration had established a pretty strong record of at first funding Hamas and then pulling the funding away through this particular agency. Where are the pros and cons here? And the larger question is it time to withdraw from the UN entirely?
Well, I've been saying this for a long time. I've always had my doubts. When I was in Rwanda in the 1994 crisis, when we did Operation Restore Hope there, and I saw what UN did, which basically withdraw, allowed, when they left, there was no authority, and almost 1 million people were slayed. Some of them had babies ripped from their arms and dashed on stones. It was very troubling to watch this firsthand, not be able to do anything about it. These are the kind of things I've seen the UN be very inept at. I've seen corruption without any accountability. I've seen them be anti-United States, anti-Israel, anti-Semitic. When you see what their bias is when they sanction or when they call for justice amongst Israelis, but never against Hamas or Hezbollah or Houthis or anybody else that's a terrorist organization, you know it's a corrupt organization. You know it's biased. And the reason that President Trump is withdrawing from these areas is because we've tried to influence. And you want to have a seat at the table, and that's the pro. But the problem is if they don't listen to you and they ignore your influence, that is not even something we need to be involved with. Unlike NATO, where we have controlling votes and actually people care about what we bring to the table, the UN just wants our money, and they have no interest in doing anything beneficial to the United States or in our interests.
Well, the perfect illustration of that, Congressman, is the fact that China, it's a massive violator of human rights, is a sitting and voting member on that council. And, the absurdity of that is not unnoticed by the entire world. And yet they just continue to let it happen because, as you say, they're all about the money and the funding to be able to go do and push their own little agendas. They're not really about human rights.
And you can see the unfair way that we're funding this too, by the way. The United States obviously has the lion's share of funding. And we do want to be on the UN from the standpoint we want to have veto power. We want to have disruptive power when the UN starts to mandate things. We don't want to be part of world organizations that have authority over Americans. It's always a bad idea. We want to have a seat at the table, but I think we have to withdraw from our max participation when we're abused like that. And I think President Trump's going to hold them accountable.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that happen on the tariff side of things, and this is the diplomatic side of things, and the tariff side of things seems to be working as far as Trump's tactics so far. One last thing before we go, we're talking about, taking a closer look at how we spend our money. You were on CNN recently, and you said both sides of the aisles reaching for that 5-alarm fire bell. You said that you would like to take a closer look at school lunch programs, and that we need to evaluate and see how that money is spent. The problem that the conservatives and the liberals alike have pointed out, they look at guys like J.D. Vance, saying he grew up in rural Ohio. These are rural kids who rely on these school lunches. And they made it sound like you wanted to cut school lunches altogether. I know that's not what you were talking about, but what is your response to the critics so far when they say that you're trying to cut out school lunches?
It's so amazing how out of context it was taken. I clearly was talking about a specific number of people in a specific situation. They asked me, but first of all, I said, look, it's not going to be cut right now. They're doing a top-down review. As they freeze these grants, that's not current spending, that's future spending. You can see right now in Georgia, 64%, almost 2/3 qualify for lunch aid. You can't tell me that that's a good use of money when 2/3. I cannot believe that 2/3 of Georgians need to be supported by a federal program. Secondly, I was talking about summer programs, and they have had programs where they deliver lunches during the summer to kids who need it. Now, I get it. You're not going to have 5-year-olds go to work. That's not what I was talking about. I clearly said that's not what I'm talking about. When you have high school kids who have the ability to go to work, not everybody does, but some have the ability to actually walk down the street and work at Taco Bell like my sons did, or work at a business that sets up party favors and does tables and chairs and stuff like that, and actually make a living. Now they're learning to work ethic instead of sitting at home waiting for lunch to be delivered. It's a win-win for those students. I don't know about you, but everybody I know that has worked hard since they were a child, and that's the single biggest determinant of success in American children, is how much responsibility they give you. Not how much you give them, not what they're born with, not their social status, but how much responsibility you demand of your children is going to determine how successful they are in life. And my only point was to say that kids who are sitting at home that are able to go to work should go to work because it gives them value. That's something that the Americans, people come here from all over the world to work because that's what gives them value. That's what gives them a dream. That's what gives them an ethic that made them successful into the future. And that's what I was suggesting. Nothing else. Everything else is superfluous and is misplaced. And they really tried to misinterpret this to the point where I've actually had people encourage violence towards me. And that's not appreciated because we're not having a real dialogue at that point.
And a real dialogue is necessary. But what's even more powerful about what you're saying is who is saying it. I mean, you come from a single mother family. You put yourself through school. You put yourself through medical school. You went to the Marine Corps, and now you're a congressman. I mean, the American dream right there. And
the American dream. And my mom was a secretary when she was employed. That's right. That's right. And if you look at J.D. Vance and others, we've learned.
Yeah, no, that's right. Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you for adding context and light to some of these conversations. They're very important. Thank you.
My pleasure. You have a blessed day. Semper Fidelis.
Semper Fi.